All right, and we are live. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, representing Jason Blaha's Strength and Fitness. Get a sip of water. So here's how not used to front squats I are. That's from the bar this morning. That's from the bar because I have that squat bar with that aggressive knurl on it. It kind of dug into my shoulders a little bit, didn't it? Yeah, but I'm going to keep working on those. I need to get to at least a 405 front squat. I want to get that paused beltless back squat ass to grass to 500 plus. Those are goals for this year, in addition to that 405 bench. Those are this year's goals. That's stuff I'm going to work on. All right. I'm going to keep this lively, keep it interesting, but there's certain types of questions, guys, I'm just not going to entertain. Let's keep stuff appropriate, right? Let's keep stuff appropriate, Need to make it somewhat viewer friendly, guys. Front squatting with straps. I mean, if that's what you need to do, I know my friend Christian Thibodeau he's big on that. I know Christian's a big fan. I personally like the idea of just building our wrists up enough to really be able to handle it. That is my whole rack position was kind of the weak link for me today. That 285 wasn't that hard on my quads and stuff, but it was the rack position. Do I think the straps, though, can work for some people as an intermediary while they're working on that? Yeah, they can. I've never been comfortable with them. For me personally, is a hack squat useful? I'm not a super big fan. But Jens, you need to specify because there's two different things people call a hack squat. Do you mean a machine or do you mean like a behind the back deadlift? Thoughts on cable rows, any benefits to avoiding low back fatigue? I mean, I don't think that they're significantly different from a free weight chest supported row, a seal row or whatever. I don't have a problem with cable rows. I prefer free weights. Right, I prefer free weights, but I don't think cable rows are a bad exercise. What is your opinion on Olympic weightlifting? You're going to need to be a lot more specific. You just asked my opinion on the whole sport. Exquisite, I am not going to jump into all that, right? I am very familiar with the class action suit. I was not negatively affected by that. And it's not the bonus program that they're doing the class action over. It has to do with the reels play. There's 8 different programs you need to keep up with. Hello, Jason. What do you know about having squat day, bench day, and deadlift day for a drug-free lifter? I mean, it's workable if your volumes and everything are on point. I mean, I've written some of that for people. It wouldn't always be my first choice, but it's workable. It can be workable. Absolutely. Looking big and lean, coach. Yeah, I'm okay. I don't think I'm that lean. But, I'm probably going to get leaner as I work on some conditioning. Right. I think it's going to happen by default. Looking big. Hack squat machine equals bigger legs, better squat. Yeah, I mean, you mean the hack squat machine. Yeah, I think they're fine. I prescribe them. Coach, I just got my blood work and my test is 410 with my free test being 7.1. Low thoughts. Is your SHBG high? Are you following too low of a carb diet? Visualize. Are you on the low carb diet? Be my first question. Exquisite, I'm not going to go into details about Facebook stuff on all that. I don't want to get caught up in any of that. And I'm very familiar. I'm in plenty of groups. But I don't want to get caught up in any of that. And I almost feel like deleting your comment just because it's in one of my videos and I don't want that getting sent to Meta. So I'm going to remove your comment. There we go. And that's only fair, dude, because people like to report me for all sorts of stuff. I have a good relationship with Meta. So, Coach, thoughts on trap bar deadlift instead of um, straight bar since it feels better? I'm not a fan of the trap bar, dude. Sorry. I'm just not a fan. Yeah, but Exquisite, I don't want any of my outreach being used to advertise that and then that going back to Meta. Does that make sense? I have a good relationship with them. I'm in a number of programs. Um, and I actually do workshops and stuff with some of their people, like in Zoom calls. So I just don't want any of my stuff to be used to advertise that. If that's cool, thank you. Is a mid bar position on the back squat okay if I don't have the mobility to have the bar directly on my rear delts? You could got to find what's comfortable for you there, man. I can't really see what's going on just based upon on your words. So I really need to see what's going on. But I mean, you have to find the position that's comfortable for you. But I mean, look, if you can't do a low bar, you could just high bar it, just build your quads up. That's an option, right? I mean, I'm over here about working on getting my high bar ass to grass squat above 500. It can be done. Anything at looking at decline versus flat versus incline to see weak points. For example, my decline. Levi, that looks relatively balanced, to be honest. Jason, are you abandoning powerlifting in the big three lifts? Darko, why are people asking that? That seems really weird. Did was that made unclear somehow in my video? I thought I said in there I still want a 700 deadlift, a 405 bench. I feel like people missed that part. Tio, yeah, I'm gonna eventually. I'm gonna start with some other cardio first. I'm not ready to jump out and start jogging yet. I want it to cool down just a hair. I'm probably gonna do my sled first and then work in some jogging. I'm just gonna add it gradually. The main thing is to add it gradually. Mid-April, strained my right glute hamstring on a 565 deadlift and it was clean. I took 4 months off lower body and just did 405 and it felt light, but I still have some pain discomfort. What should I do? Kratos, I can't really assess anything based just on that. I really can't. You probably do need to work on building your hamstrings up, though. That's the main thing. It sounds like you might have had weak hamstrings. You need to spend a lot of time just hypertrophying them, right? Start doing more hamstring work. I am never sore anymore. Is that a problem? Probably not. Coach, you agree with the statement? Possibly visualize if their blood work is clean. I mean, if their blood work looks okay, I don't have an issue with that. Are deficit deadlifts dangerous or safe? I'm a fan of deficit deadlifts. I do them. You've seen me do them for 600 plus pounds before on camera. Are you still doing farmer's walks? No. How much cardio GPP are you going to start with? Small amounts, James, and just build it back up. Do you like swimming as cardio for lifters? I think swimming is great cardio. The future of powerlifting, man, I don't know what the future of powerlifting holds. I mean, there's a lot of BS and a lot of politics and a lot of these feds happening and problems again. So I really don't know how to predict the future of powerlifting. I really don't. I've been made aware of even other problems by people who've told me things I didn't know about, just in general, and it's kind of troubling. Talking with other lifters and stuff, there's troubling stuff happening. Coach, for recreational lifter, thoughts on swapping the bench and overhead press for the incline bench, mainly for time saving? No, I don't like the idea of cutting your bench out, honestly. It's such an important mass builder. So what are you doing to replace the flat bench? That's the problem. Do you see yourself building back up to running marathons? Wow, that's the idea of me running a marathon. I don't know about that. How about I just start working on the conditioning and becoming a more well-rounded athlete while I work on my endurance and my mobility and stuff to go with the strength? Jens, I'm going to delete that comment. You guys know that is an off topic. That is a no-no for YouTube. So we're not going to discuss it. We all got a memo on that last year, a big email, all the creators did who were monetized. So, and everybody knows this who follows YouTube. I'm not going to jump too much into gear talk. Do you think it might be possible to do a podcast with Alex Beata? I understand he's very busy with his business. It would be amazing to have him back on the channel. I mean, maybe. It's possible. I mean, Alex is a super busy guy, though. But I have other people coming on. I have new people already scheduled to come in my podcast, like right now. Coach is going to start running. No, I've told you guys for years that cardio isn't a gains killer, actually, Chris. I've made quite a few videos telling you cardio is not a gains killer. So maybe you're not familiar with the total sum of my work over the years. When it is the better to program unilateral leg exercises, single leg squat leg, comparing the normal bilateral. When you want less axial loading and you just want some leg hypertrophy, and say you don't have access to machines or whatever. I mean, unilateral leg exercises are great as supplemental work. I think they're fantastic, right? What's your macronutrient ratios? I don't know. I don't track macros. Coach, do you agree that testosterone should be legalized or purchased? No, I don't think regardless of age. I would like to see it have a similar legal status to alcohol. Jason, seems like your upper traps of blown up high bar squats must be comfortable with the bar laying on that meaty shelf. They're actually surprisingly comfortable, yeah. Coach, starting to run after I started too. Awesome. Training after 40, what changes? Really recovery, tendons. How do I put this? Your body just does not feel the same under loads. There's just certain aches and pains you get, tendons. It really, and I would say the tendons are the biggest difference. You just have to watch tendon inflammation a lot more. You've got to pay attention to those things. You lose mobility very, very, very quickly if you don't stay on top of it. And that's something that I've had to learn to get around. This is something I've had to learn to accept. Like mobility diminishes rapidly when you're over 40 if you do not stay on top of it. Coach, you still advocate milk, egg, and steak for being? No, I don't. I don't know why you guys would be asking me that in 2023. I don't think fat is particularly anabolic as far as calories go, and particularly not saturated fat. How many calories are you having currently, Jason? 4,000 to 4,500 is a normal day. Do you think you will ever go back to doing those breakfast chats videos you used to do for some years ago? I only did that for a short time. No, I didn't like doing it, honestly. For me personally, I didn't like that style of video. You guys get me in front of these lives sometimes now. There you go. Is there a problem with gains eating hamburgers and maybe only a serving of vegetables after blood work? Okay. I mean, I get it, but you should generally eat more vegetables when possible. It's a good idea. Fruits and vegetables are phenomenal for your health, and most people really could stand to take in quite a bit more, you know. Jason, are you planning to do volume work with your squats where you be able to recover from that Darko? If you watched the vlog today, you already know the answer. I'm not going to discuss how I'm voting. Coach, if you don't like saturated fat, how do you advocate to get my protein? You can eat leaner proteins, bro. It's not that hard. How much do you use machines? You can watch my vlogs and see the exact amount I use machines every single week. Are 15 to 20 rep squats good for hypertrophy? Is that just too much volume? No, that can be great for hypertrophy. On squats, I think it can be pretty good, right? Looking lean. Do you eat more calories on workout days? No, not really. Thank you, Chuck. I don't think I'm super lean, honestly, but I'm leaner than I have been in past years. Chris, it's not that I can't speak my mind. It's that I don't like making enemies over politics. Does that make sense? Like, I run a fitness channel. I run a strength channel. I run a coaching channel. I don't feel the need to take every group of people and say, okay, because if I start discussing politics, only people who agree with my politics are going to stick around. People who might otherwise like what I have to say, if they hold any political view different than me, and it doesn't matter if it's the left or the right, people are so polarized that you get enemies for purely having an opinion. Even if you agree with someone's politics on 70% of stuff, and you just hit one of their pet peeves as a topic, they hate you and they literally consider you an evil person and their enemy. So do you see the problem? And I have things that I positions that I hold that both sides of the fence hate. Like, there are positions that I hold that people on the far left would hate me for, and people on the far right. Like, nobody would like me. Everyone would hate me. Every person who's political would hate me on both sides. Does that make sense? Purely because I don't adhere to all 20 out of 20 of their policies. So why discuss it? So I'm not playing into anyone's hands. Like, I think you might not actually know what I believe politically, and that's okay. Because you think that's the case, though, I already know where you stand politically. Hey, Jason, with your novice 2.0, don't you get any significant stronger on bench press than barbell rows because you don't have the exercise twice as often? Not necessarily, Anakin. Joel, I changed my mind based upon scientific evidence, and that was a long time ago. I mean, I would tell guys, like, if you really want to know what I believe about training or nutrition, you should watch stuff I've made within the last year. I mean, that would tell you a lot about my current stance. And I know it's confusing because I've been putting out content for 11 years now. So if you're picking and choosing, say, from 3 years ago, 7 years ago, 11 years ago, like one stance that I had at one time with different evidence on a substance, I'm getting tongue-tied, then it's going to create a lot of confusion as for what I currently do. But if you stick to mostly videos made within the last 1 to 2 years at any given point, and mostly stick there, you're probably going to have a better idea. Does that make sense? Our opinions change over time based upon evidence. Hey, Jason, what do you think about low bar squats? I've been doing high bar ever since I've been squatting. I mean, honestly, for powerlifting, I mean, low bar makes sense. But I mean, really, if we're going to talk overall athleticism, hypertrophy, I think we could make a case for high bar. Particularly if you're trying to get the biggest quads, because we can get deeper knee angles. If knee angle is the same, fine, but it usually isn't. That's one of the perks of low bar. We can get a deeper hip depth with less knee bend, right? Therefore, it's easier to lift more weight in theory. So, I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to do. Darko, because I don't consider myself that lean, because in the fitness industry, which is my industry, I'm still considered fat. And so are most of the people. Most of the fitness people you follow are fat half the year. But It's because of the industry I'm in. Compared to the average person, yes, I'm extremely lean. And I think that's an interesting point people have to remember with these things too, that in the fitness world, we have such a skewed perception, right? We have such a skewed perception compared to the average person. Like what people on the internet in the fitness world will call fat, the average person considers to be ripped. Put that in context. Thoughts on Conor Murphy experimenting with the SARM? I'm not interested in his experimentation with SARMs. Okay, does dietary cholesterol raise blood cholesterol or not? Okay, good question, Marco. In a percentage of the population, it appears to. And I think that number is about 20 to 25%. Saturated fat increases LDL, but does dietary cholesterol? It seems to be a genetic trait for approximately a fourth, so 20 to 25% of the population, if I remember the data correctly. And that's the if. Coach, if I'm genetically prone to high cholesterol, what can I do to get that down? Cut your saturated fat, increase your polyunsaturated fats, lose body fat. But the thing is, high bar doesn't work well for me. I've done all the ankle mobility. I just can't go deep. It genuinely hurts my hip joint where the legs connect. It's your stance. Just because skin sag doesn't mean that one's obese. Where's better? No, yeah, I mean, I get that, Colin, and I agree with that. I mean, I'm over here training shirtless and beltless, just in shorts right now. I mean, so it's there. It's very interesting. Was the new data? Yeah, there. I linked some stuff on that a couple of years back, Joel. There is causation between LDL and atherosclerosis now. We know that saturated fat has the highest impact on LDL cholesterol. So therein lay our problem. Excess saturated fat's a problem. I'm not saying saturated fat is a problem. I'm saying excess. And please understand the difference. What do you think of allantoral? I only thing I know about allantoral these days is kind of that video I did on the bodybuilding thing. That's the only thing I'm up to speed with right now. But I did a whole video on that with his thing talking about bodybuilding. So if you go back and check that, I did it last month. Is a 315 on Good Mornings for Rep Work pretty strong in your opinion? I think it is. Do you tell people if they do something dangerous in the gym? Sometimes, but I'm not training in gyms lately. I have my home gym. What type of lean would you recommend? Meat? I've seen ground turkey or chicken breast. I think those are both good. I do chicken breast pretty often, but I think lean cuts of steak are fine. Like a lean sirloin is fine. Could ban face pulls, weighted chin ups, and deadlifts build back and replace rows? Well, here's the thing, Luca. Why do you want to replace rows? What's wrong with rows? You telling me you don't want to do any horizontal pulling? I mean, it's a basic movement pattern. Jens, I don't know how we define good genetics. I guess it depends entirely upon what trait we're talking about, doesn't it? I mean, take bodybuilding, for example. One of the keys to having great genetics in bodybuilding is to be short. In a lot of other areas, that's not considered good genetics. So I think it's relative to what the topic of discussion is. What test levels of cutoff any do you think someone should hop on TRT? That's between you and your doctor. Thoughts on bison? I guess lean bison's fine. I like it. I watched you the 600 cambered bar squat, my quads were used. Do I think I can get to that again under 230? Yes, but I've got to get my quads that big. Now, the problem with that is I didn't hit depth on that. So do you see the other problem there? It's one thing to squat a little high like that. It's another thing to go deep with it. So that's the problem. Do I think I can be at the same strength level I was then, which would mean whatever I would have been able to do deep? Yeah, absolutely. For tempo back squats, I don't do tempo work. Thoughts on? I don't know what that is. Do you never miss public gyms? I mean, they have their pros and cons. Have you seen any impact on your coaching business with the revolutionary AI? And I don't think AI can replace coaching. Coach, do you think a shorter lifter could win bodybuilding shows? Which bodybuilding shows? What do you mean? 5'5" like Kai Green? You're asking me, could Kai Green win with less than a gram of gear? Because he's about 5'5". I've met him. Parth, none of that makes any sense to me. I don't see how any of that would possibly work. I think there's a lot of nonsense that you've maybe correlated. Did being around other lifters in a public gym ever motivate you during a workout? Not really. But the thing is, I don't rely on motivation when I train. I just don't. I'm just there to get my training done. Like I don't need that sort of external drive. I've never required it. Do you program zercher squats for your clients? Not really. Maybe a few fighters here and there. Maybe for an occasional odd max effort lift. Do you agree that the squat is a good adductor/abductor? Well, two different things. Okay, we need to pick one over a quad exercise. I think squats, particularly deep squats, are a great quad exercise. But if we go off the evidence, they're a slightly better adductor exercise. But adductor, not abductor. I'm not saying they're a bad abductor, but it's such a small muscle that why are we even discussing it compared to a quad? It seems kind of strange. I know all serious lifters have discipline, but some days I find myself motivated when I see other people in the gym. Motivation's not even a factor. Opinion on dead hangs for time. 2 minutes seems good for 100 kilogram body weight. Yeah, 2 minutes is awesome. 2 minute dead hang at 100 kilo body weight is great. If you could speak to Jason Blaha from Ice Cream Fitness back then, what would you say? Oh gosh. Dump Brittany right now. Get rid of her. That would be what I would say. That would have saved me a lot of problems. There's a caveat, it needs to be a deep ass squat. I don't know that that's the case for the adductor. I would say that to be at the best quad stimulation, it needs to be as deep as possible. You mentioned during a podcast that you have pizza cheat days. How often? They're sporadic, Colin. Every 9, 10, 14 days, something like that. Have you ever considered contact lenses? I can't touch my eye. I tried. I can't do it. Thoughts on heavily emphasized weighted chins for gains? Long as you're careful with your biceps and don't tear anything. Visualize. I'm not going to go into all of that. Here's the problem with that. I don't have a problem with guys doing tests. I don't. But what does 200 milligrams have to do with offsetting environmental factors? Like, you're still going to be higher than any human in recorded history has ever been. You're not going to be in the normal range even in ancient times. You're still enhanced. Do you prefer to coach men or women? I find women actually make better clients. Is not saying universally, just as a statistic. I mean, obviously there are a lot of exceptions to any rule. So I don't want that to be taken as entirely across the board true. They're just more likely to follow the program and do what they need to do, though. If they pay you, they're generally going to stick to the program. Joel, all programming is based on the individual. You're asking a very generic statement. Because programming, when you're coaching, is individual based upon that specific person's needs. Do you still coach for Em and her husband? Yes. They're pretty much lifers. They told me that a couple years back. They're like, as long as you continue to coach, we plan on staying locked in. What do you think is the meaning of life? Do I need to give you a Conan quote? Go. I mean, because you're asking me something that I don't have the answer to. So we'll just quote Conan the Barbarian. Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hit the lamentation of the women. You know, is a 12-inch boxer box squat for a 6-foot male shorter, do you think? How deep are you trying to go? How far below parallel are you trying to go? It's not necessarily based purely on your height. We're looking at hip angles. Jason, you recently made a video on neural drive for a muscle versus muscle size as a novice. I'm lacking size for a big bench. For example, I'm 5'11", 190, do 26% body fat. I don't think I lack size. I don't know what's going on with your bench. Arm length is a big factor. Keep in mind size versus your moment arms. Have I lost any clients to the AI tools? Not to my knowledge. Do you still think a low fat, higher protein and carbohydrate diet could potentially limit fat gains? Yeah, it can potentially limit fat gains. Not saying it will, because low and high are very relative terms. But obviously a lower fat diet is going to have more potential for less fat gain on a bulk. Coach, why do so many fitness lifters have crazy expectations if do you even lift compared to the general public? Well, because again, this is a very skewed group. We have a lot of body dysmorphia, right? Body dysmorphia is prevalent in the lifting world. I mean, it's ubiquitous. So you have that factor. Then you have the financial factor. You know, how many of these people are then pushing certain things, and for people to never live up to those expectations if they're selling products built around it. Pin presses for bench press to attack weak points, sticking points. I'm not a big fan of using partials, if that's what you mean by the pin press. Do you mean a pin press down to the chest just to have a harder dead stop? Or do you mean doing it as a partial, like for the same reason you do board work? I don't know. I don't know that that is the best approach. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I could also say, why don't you just get stronger? Okay, why don't you just build the muscles that are most involved with your sticking point? Why don't you focus on getting more explosive out of the bottom by building bigger pecs, lats, everything? Doing more pause work so that you can just blast through the sticking point. That's also an option. What are some of your favorite ultra high rep band exercises for tendon hypertrophy, band press downs, leg extensions, sometimes leg curls for some lifters? Yes, my arms are on the longer end. Does this mean I need more size to increase my bench? Yes. Have any of your clients dropped you and tried to program their own workouts based off of what they learned from you? Yeah, lots of them have. Some of them are successful, some of them fail. What is your last meal before a heavy workout? Carbs. Sorry, guys, my ear is itching. People would be like, oh, he just lied. He scratched his ear. He scratched his ear while answering a question saying that he eats carbs. Because there's any doubt that I eat carbohydrates. Yes, I mean, as a partial, thanks for the response. Yeah. In what situation for a client would you prescribe the floor press if they're having some shoulder inflammation from the longer ranges of motion? I don't know that I want to bring back more Gear Talk videos, honestly. Hey, Jason, should people with mild scoliosis avoid any of the main exercises? I don't think that they necessarily should. They should pay attention to their body mechanics. They should pay attention and watch for signs of injury and overuse based around their medical condition. But I don't think that they need to inherently avoid those. And I know someone personally who I have met in person at a meet who I watched deadlift 600 pounds with severe scoliosis. Just fine. Thoughts on using dextrose pre-workout? I don't see the point. Do you still program Mikey? No, Mikey's been out for a while. I did touch base with him last month, though. Like, we touched base. Okay. But no, he is not currently being coached. He's been out for quite a while. What client have you had you're most proud of? I've got a few I'm really proud of. I'm going to say, man, are you going to make me narrow it down? I mean, I have a lot of them. I'm proud of the work they've done consistently, but if I've got to pick one who's where they've gone from where they started is the most impressive to me. I've got 3 or 4, but let me narrow it down to 2. Probably Justin or Michelle. Probably, but I mean, I don't know. I've got quite a few. I've been really happy with what they've done. Coach will ever see anabolics legalizing? I have no idea. Leather versus suede when it comes to lifting belts. I mean, if you're going to use a belt, you should use leather. Are you still practicing guitar daily? Yes, every single day. Even if it's just for 10 minutes, just to hit some scales or a couple licks, every single day. Is a nap in the middle of the day a good idea? Yeah, it can be. Gonna make the older client. Oh, what do you mean? Justin's been on for 4 years. What are you talking about? Yeah, Joel, you ask way too many personal questions about my money and stuff. You got to go. Bye-bye. You a troll. Hey, coach, when I follow the 10 sets per week per muscle or triceps with 5x10 tricep cables 2 times a week makes sense, or is that much too? I don't think that that's unreasonable, to be honest, just given the nature of triceps. Would you coach Vegan Gains if he pays really well? How much are we talking, gents? Give me a number. Because, people can say never when you're talking, I wouldn't do this or that or do whatever for money. So how much are we talking? Give me a number. Do you usually nap after your workouts? Sometimes, but not always. So even novices need more side, like not just more neural drive. Oh yeah, absolutely. Coach, will we ever see a time when the fitness audience wises up and stops idolizing fake natties? That would have to go hand in hand with realizing supplements are a scam. We can only dream. Darko, I'm not trying not to answer a lot of gear questions. Yeah, to be honest. I mean, I've told you guys everything that you need to know for a starting point. I mean, and besides that, you can do a consultation. Like if you really want more information on gear, I do consultations. If you want to know about your specific situation. Do you think protein bars are a good, cheap way of meeting daily? I'm not a fan of protein bars for the most part. Honestly, they just cause GI tract distress. You could eat a piece of meat or some Greek yogurt or something in place of that. Would you ever coach one of your YouTube rivals if they wanted you to? Who are my rivals? Rivals. I wouldn't be opposed to coaching other YouTubers, though. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. A good client's a good client. Like, does the fact that they're a YouTuber shouldn't be a factor for me? For the average person who just wants to be fit, should their training be any different from an intermediate lifter? I don't know that it should. For your big lifts, how does your strength compare now to 5 to 10 years ago? Good question. Squatting is down a little bit. Probably, well, 5 to 10 are two very different times. 5 years ago was a different world than 10. But definitely my bench is up. My bench is the highest it's been since I've been on YouTube as far as this summer. Deadlift is definitely up from 10 years ago. I don't know that the squat is right now. Give me a little time. If the Games pays $500 per week, I'd coach him for $500 a week. You know, I told you got to give me a number. Yeah, I'd do it. So that's $2,000 a month. I'd coach him for $2,000. But he'd have to actually do what I tell him to do with the training. Like if it were Jeff Side or someone you don't really agree with, why would Jeff Side hire me? I don't think Jeff Side would hire me. Plus, he's a physique guy, isn't he? It's not really my expertise. But if Jeff Side were to come to me and say, hey, I want to get stronger, I respect your knowledge, let's put that other little silly nonsense about I was going to hit you in the past. I'd be cool with it. I mean, I'd coach him. Why wouldn't I? If he actually wanted to get strong. For Rose, is 5 by 10 2 times a week too much for drug-free lifters? It depends on what's going on with the totality of your lifters. I don't think it's by default too much. Coach, do you agree that lifters who overanalyze everything about lifting must be on the spectrum? No, that doesn't mean they're on the spectrum. Some of them are. When are you going to compete again? I'm not going to make that public knowledge. Does the JM press work the long head of the triceps? Of course it does. It's just not the best exercise for the long head. Meaning it's not a particularly phenomenal exercise for the long head, but it works it. Coach, what causes abdominal growth? It's visceral fat. What would you say is the most common fatigue management issue that you see from your clients? Sleep. Sleep. Would you rather be a great guitarist with the shredding skills of Steve Vai or be a more clinical one who writes great songs like Kurt Cobain? No. As a musician, let's be frank here. So look, Steve Vai is a phenomenal guitarist. Technically speaking, Steve Vai is an amazing God tier level guitarist, right? I think we all agree. Who moved more people emotionally? Who had a larger influence on their audience? So what is music at the end of the day? Is music about being technically the best as a form of competition? Or is music about creating art that inspires, moves people, and elicits emotion in the people who hear it? I'm going to go with the latter, right? I'm going to go with the latter. Music should elicit emotion. Kurt Cobain was not a particularly good guitarist by any stretch of the imagination, yet his music and his songs brought people to emotion. He gave some moving performances, right? What's your opinion on cable presses flies for chest? I don't think that they're that great. Have you seen the new trend of lifters trying to complicate every little thing to make it optimal? Yeah, I think it's nonsense, because they don't even get it right. Like, they complicate things to make things more optimal, and they make it worse. How many of them who try to do that, they don't even know basic physiology, and they over nerd out on it, and they actually take a good exercise and make it worse, an inferior overall training stimulus, while trying to make it optimal. And keep in mind, most of it, when they do this, is pseudoscientific. It's not even science. It's just bullshit that they're making up. Do specific songs bring you to tears? I have a bunch of them. Colin, I'll name a song that can make me cry, and you're going to laugh when I tell you what it is. Like, I have stopped and just cried in the middle of it. Okay, you ready? Social Distortion, Ball and Chain. Right? Social Distortion, Ball and Chain. A couple different times that I've heard that song, I've just cried. And it's because I have certain memories and events in my life tied to that song. But that's the thing with music. Music elicits emotion. Okay, so we come back over to that point. What makes someone a better musician? Their technical proficiency, or their ability to inspire people and to move them. Best way to pull the slack out of the bar for a conventional deadlift: pull the slack out of the bar. Coach, with the job I am currently working, I average around 25 to 30,000 steps a day. High intensity activity, loading heavy objects. In your opinion, would adding more GVP work be valuable? Nope, you're good. Would you rather be a lead guitarist or a rhythm one? Both. All right. No, Michelle's still a client. Great Gains. But even asking a trolley question like that. Bam. All right. Okay, we got any other questions? We're at 48 minutes now. I think we're going to wind this down. So I hope it's been informative. I love all of you guys and gals. And I will talk to you guys next time.